Salve te omnes, and welcome back to Aeneid Book 1, going through it for the AP, following along with our textbook, Virgil's Aeneid by Barbara Boyd. So today, in this video, we will be going through lines 102 to 123, the storm. So just a quick review of where we came from. We had just read about Aeolus unleashing the winds and them blasting down upon the sea, taking away the daytime sky, shrouding the Trojans in darkness, and giving all signs that death is imminent. Aeneas, we saw him for the first time. He was raising his hands in prayer, and not praying for salvation, remember, but praying that he was dead, praying that he had died at Troy. So, Aeneas has just finished speaking. Let's get into this here. Aeneas has just finished speaking, and this participle right here, iactanti, as your note tells you, is actually referring to Aeneas. It is a dative, as we can see right there with the I. It is also a present active participle, which we see from the nt, the nt, and talia is its object. All right. So Aeneas is throwing out such things. We understand verba, words, to go with talia. So, to Aeneas throwing out such words, the winds, in essence, in a way, sort of have a reply. So what do we see? We see a gale, right? A gale from the north, shrieking, okay? This was the same word used of the ropes above. So a gale from the north wind, shrieking, and what does this gale from the north wind do? It strikes. It strikes the sail opposite. Now technically, for being technical about it, technically adversa is going with procella, but it works better in translation almost as an adverb. The gale, the blast, strikes the sails head on, something like that, even though grammatically adversa procella. So this is a very bad thing if you are sailing and you're not expecting it for your sails to be struck head on. But the gale is not done, this blast. The other thing it does is that it raises up. It raises up what? It raises up a wave. So it raises up a wave to the stars. Once again, ad sidera, to the sky. Sidera being stars. This whole thing here to the sky, of course, being hyperbole. We're going to be seeing a lot of that in this passage. All right, so now that this blast has come down from the north wind, with the north wind, things are happening. And we can see here in the next two lines a great number of verbs. Once again, Virgil is doing his thing where verbs to indicate action, right? Verbs are happening, dot, and in sequitur. Okay, so many, many verbs. In the meanwhile, though, what do we see? Well, we see the remi, right? So the first thing that happens is shattered are the oars. So the oars are shattered. Remember that ancient ships were powered by both sail and oars. So now the oars are gone. And then, next thing is that the prow, this is the front of the ship, of course, the prow turns aside. And your note in your book suggests that you understand a say, right? We can throw one of those in here, that you understand say with it, okay? So the prow of the ship turns itself aside. We'll pop that up there. Turns itself aside, and to the waves, this is actually a dative, not an ablative, because we see the dot down here. To the waves, the prow, still the prow of the ship, gives, what does it give? Its side. Okay, so the ship has turned and given its side to the waves, so the wave is about to hit the ship broadside and presumably do bad things to it. There followed, just as above, when the storm was attacking, and then there followed the shrieking of the ropes and the clamor of men. Here follows, in a mass, right? In a mass. This is ablative. Okay, cumulo. Being ablative, a towering, this is all our subject right here, a towering mountain of water. All right, genitive. A towering mountain of water followed in a heap, in a mass, something like that. Okay, and it is worth noting, your note makes mention of the fact that mons is a monosyllable, just a one-syllable word, ending a line here for dramatic effect. So if you were to sit and just scan, a couple hundred lines of Virgil, you would notice that monosyllables at the ends of lines are exceedingly rare. So this is sort of building to a great climax. There is a literal mountain of water towering above them. Again, hyperbole, but fun. All right, so now things are getting started. We're going to be moving quite quickly, and there's going to be a lot of jumping around between these people, and then other people, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that you keep in mind all of these things that are happening are more or less happening to different groups of people throughout the chaos and madness and hecticness of the storm. All right, so first we have these guys. Doesn't matter who they are, they're just guys, okay? People. What are they doing? These people over here, they are pendenting, right? Pendenting. They are hanging at the very top of the wave. So that monster wave that was just raised up, there's a ship perched on the very, very top. Then we have some other guys, right? Your note in your book suggests that the he and the he's are different ships, although there's not necessarily a particular reason to read it that way, but, again, chaos of the moment. For these other people over here, okay, what is going on? The wave is dehiskens, and this is a little bit of onomatopoeia, because if you've ever been to the ocean and heard a wave as it is going back out to sea, snaking along the sand, it has that lovely hissing, foaming sound, and dehiskens echoes that a little bit. So the wave splitting open, gaping open, because we all know that waves move in, crests and troughs. So the wave splitting open reveals, and we're actually doing a parrot for that, right? It opens up, so it reveals the land between the waves. So this wave is so massive that the crest of it is so high that in between the wave you can actually look down and see the bottom of the ocean, is what this is more or less, what I've always understood. This is more or less saying that is how big the wave is. In between the waves you can actually gaze upon the ground. Again, more hyperbole, very, very dramatic. And then just to cap this off, the Aistus, which is the tide, all right, rages in the sand, okay, in the sand. So again, thinking about if you've ever been to the ocean, you've seen waves as they're pulling back out to sea. They tend to get very white, very bubbly, very foamy. That is the Aistus that is raging in the sand. All right, moving on. Let's move down here to the rest of this initial scene. We have now moved on to a new object. So 3, your note tells you that these are ships, and they have been abreptas, they have been snatched up. And who is doing all of this snatching? Well, it is our good friend the Notus. Okay, the Notus is back. And again, you don't have to worry about what direction that wind is coming from. You can just say the Notus, it's a wind. What is the Notus doing now? It is torqueting. Okay, so not just turning. Again, we've seen this in Caesar as well. This is not just the verb for to turn, but it's also the verb that one uses when one hurls a spear. Laocoon in Book 2, torquet his hastam at the horse. So the Notus is not just twisting these ships onto hidden rocks, right? Onto hidden rocks right here. These being accusative, by the way, because they are neuter plural. So this is an accusative, not an ablative, onto. The Notus is not just turning them, but it's as if the wind has picked them up and chucked them onto the rocks. What kind of rocks? Now at this moment here, the saxa is still the object, right? We're going into some detail here about what kind of rocks these are. And these rocks are the rocks which, now it's worth noting that this quai right here is actually referring to the saxa, okay? This quai is really referring to these saxa up here, but we've repeated it down here. So The wind hurled the ships onto some rocks, some hidden rocks. Well, what rocks? The rocks that the Italians call, okay, the Aras. And the Aras, right, is going with, excuse me, that is the wrong color. The Aras is going with the Saxa. This also got, let's just fix that real fast. There we go. We like our purple. So, one more time. The wind hurled 3 ships that were snatched up onto hidden rocks. Rocks which the Italians call the altars. And that's actually the name. This A should almost be capitalized. The altars. And where are they located? In the middle of the waves. And your note tells you that this is a particular group of rocks which is actually near the African coast, just outside ancient Carthage. So one more way in which Virgil is locating us in space as this is happening. Of course, the Trojans were near Sicily when this whole thing started, so clearly this is a monster storm. And then we're not done talking about these rocks. We have one more statement right here, which is standing in apposition to the rest. We are basically, apposition means that this is simply describing the rocks. It doesn't necessarily, apart from being the same case as the Saxa, it doesn't necessarily have a particular grammatical link back. It's simply referring to them and describing them as a massive spine, essentially, right? A massive ridge or reef, but dorsum, like a dorsal fin on a dolphin, right? It's along the back. So it's a massive ridge at the top of the sea. Not at the bottom, but at the top, right? If it were at the bottom of the sea, it wouldn't be a danger to ships. But it is at the top of the sea. Once again, ablative here. Remember the I stem, mari. Okay, so that's it for those 3 ships. The North Wind, or excuse me, the Notus, has picked them up and hurled them onto some rocks. Let's move on now to 3 other ships. All right, these are some different ships, and here's our friend the Eurus again. These winds are getting into a lot of trouble, and the Aquila was up above, off screen now. But these 3 winds are getting into a lot of trouble. What is the Eurus, who is our subject, by the way, so we should note that. What is the Eurus doing? The Eurus is urgeting, right down here, urget. So the Eurus, okay, is driving, forcing, pressing 3 other ships from the deep, so driving them away from deep water into brevia, shallow water. And not just driving them into shallow water, but specifically driving them onto the Syrtis, which is a reef or a sandbar. Okay, so that's very bad, right? The ships are going to be stranded now, and this whole thing, all right, this whole thing, these ships being driven into the shallow water, being stuck on the rocks, is a miserabile visu. All right, and this visu right here is worth taking a moment to talk about because it's our first instance of seeing something like this. This visu right here, and this thing right here, this visu is actually a supine. All right, a supine is a verb form that has a long and storied history that we don't need to get into, but basically it winds up translating as if it were an infinitive, a miserable thing to see. And your note explains that miserabile is the neuter adjective referring back to everything we were just talking about, all of the sad things that are happening to these ships. And then the visu, as an ablative, is functioning like an ablative of respect. All right, so in respect to how it looked, everything was pathetic. It was sad. It was horrible. We don't need to go into too much detail about that. Let's continue on. So we're still talking about the Eurus. The Eurus is not done. All right. Not only has the Eurus driven these ships onto the sandbar and into the shallows away from deep water, but it has also, it has also inleaded, it has also dashed them, thrown them in a sense. This verb, by the way, wants a dative, so hence wadis is dative. Has thrown them into the shallows and kingit, and surrounded them, like when you cinch a belt, surrounded them with a heap of sand. Okay, so not only have the ships been driven onto the sand, but they're onto the sandbar, but they are now surrounded by sand and presumably cannot escape. Okay, let's leave those three ships now behind us, and let's move on to the next ship. This time just one ship, okay, just one. And let's parse this out really quick. Which ship is this? Well, it is the ship which, quae has unam as its antecedent, they're right there. It is the ship which, okay, is carrying, or was carrying, since we're in the imperfect tense there, orontem, that's just a guy, and his Lykios, okay, his Lycians, his Lycians, his Lycians. These are the people from Lycia. Phaedum, of course, is describing Orontes, so we'll just throw a quick arrow right there. Don't know why it's green. Let's make it purple again. Okay, so there we go. This ship is carrying the Lycians and faithful Orontes. What is happening now? What is the wind doing now? Or in this case, actually not the wind, right? Not the wind, but instead the huge ocean, right? So again, more hyperbole. The ocean itself from the top. So again, we're imagining a wave, but this wave apparently contains the entire ocean inside of it. This wave, the whole ocean, strikes the ship, there's the unam, in the stern, right, the poop deck, the back, in the stern, before the eyes of he himself. And this, by the way, this ipsius right here, this ipsius is actually, your note tells you, this ipsius is, excuse me, this ipsius is Aeneas, okay? So technically, if we were to go into it right here, Aene I, because he's genitive, right before the eyes of Aeneas himself. So Aeneas watches as Orontes' ship is struck by a massive wave, the entire ocean from the very top onto the poop deck, okay, onto the stern. And, as you might expect, bad things follow, okay? Bad things follow. Someone is cast off or struck off. Who is cast or struck off? The magister. Now, this is not a teacher. In this case, he is pronus, by the way. He is struck headlong, okay? He goes headlong, head first. The magister, of course, in this context, is the pilot of the ship, not a teacher. So he is the pilot of the ship. Headlong was struck forth, and, all right, and we have to sort of supply the and to move us on to volvitur. All right, moving on to volvitur. Basically sort of fell or rolled onto his head. All right, so this is so the master was struck loose, went head over heels, and was cast onto his head. So he's got a concussion now. But, all right, so furthermore, ast illam, this is the ship still. We're still talking about this one ship. 3 times the wave, all right, still the subject. The fluctus is the pontus, all right. Now it's just a fluctus. The wave, what did the wave do? Well, the wave, again, the same verb as before, hurled them, twisted them, driving them. Here's our present active participle, which is actually the subject, the fluctus, driving them in a circle. This is not the preposition circum. This is being used adverbially. Okay, it drove the ship in a circle, ibidem, in the same spot. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about a whirlpool, excuse me, opening up beneath the ship. So the ship is twisting round and round in the same spot, and sure enough, right here we have a rapidus, a fast-moving, flashing vortex, excuse me, that has soaked up. That has sucked the ship into the ocean. All right, in the ocean. It is devouring the ship. Now, the ship having been devoured, what appears, right? Ad parent, what appears in the gurgite vasto, in the vast whirlpool, or, you know, flowing, so that this word can be used simply to refer to the waters, okay? What appears in the vast waters, the vast whirlpool? Rari, okay? Rari nantes. So Again, we don't know what has appeared, but we know that they are scattered and they are swimming. So we have to assume, right, the men, okay, because masculine and swimming. So the sailors here and there swimming in the vast whirlpool appear. What else appears? Okay, what else appears? Well, the arma appear. Notice these are all still the subject of ad parent. These are not objects. The arms of the men, virorum, of course, as we're used to seeing. The tabulae appear. Okay, and these are just planks, right? Planks from the ship, wood and other things. And Troia Gazda. Troia Gazda, or Gaza, if you like. This is the treasure or the wealth of Troy appears. And again, we can take Rari with all of these things, by the way. So the sailors appear far and wide, scattered, swimming. The arms of the men appear, scattered about. Planks of wood appear, scattered about. And the wealth of Troy appears, scattered about through the waves. So that ship just got sucked down, and people are swimming for their lives, and planks of wood are appearing. And now we come to the very last part of this section. And as we can see here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4. We see all kinds of ships. We see yam, yam. We see et qua, et qua. There's lots of anaphora. Things are happening very, very quickly. And at the end of it, we'll go through all this all very quickly, but at the end of it, what happens? Okay, something has won. And what has won? What has conquered the day? Hiems. Hiems has won. So winter, literally, but by metonymy, we understand winter to mean the storm. Because again, in the Mediterranean, winter tends to be the stormy season. So winter standing for the storm. The storm, winter, conquered all 4 of these ships. All right, and very briefly, let's go through what ships we are talking about. We are talking about the strong ship of Aeneas. These are just Trojans. Aeneas. We are talking now over here about the strong ship of brave Achates. Okay. We are talking now about the ships. So these quas, by the way, are ablative, of course, because if we scan the line, et qua vectus, right, and so on. So this has to be long. So that means this is long as well. So, and these quas are referring to the navem, all right? So the ship on which Abbas was carried, so we've switched now, and we have become nominative, all right? Abbas is being carried. You could say there's an est missing here. It's just the participle modifying Abbas. And Aletes, the ship on which Aletes. And who is Aletes? Well, he is a guy who is grandius, so, great in age, so aged, noble, something like that. He's old. All right. So winter conquered all 4 of these ships: the strong ship of Aeneas, the ship of brave Achates, the ship on which Abbas was being carried, and the ship on which aged Aletes was being carried. We read the Vectus with Aletes as well. And last but not least, we're still talking about the ships. All of the ships, all of them now, not just the ones that we were talking about. Okay, but all of the ships now have, or are, I should say, because again, present tense for that dramatic effect, are taking in, all right, what are they all taking in? They're all taking in, let's change that to the object, the hateful rain. Okay, the hateful rain. The water, it doesn't just have to be the rain, by the way. This could be seawater as well. All right, seawater as well. Now, where or through what are they taking in this hateful rain? Well, they're taking it in through the planks. This word here means planks or seams of their sides. Remember, these are wooden ships, so they're planked, right? One plank and then another plank. Why are the ships at the point where they're taking in water through their sides? Because the compagibus have become laxis. All right, ablative right here. Your note suggests that you could read this as an ablative of means or instrument, or you can read it as an ablative absolute, which I personally prefer. Okay, so if we were to set this up, right, indicate this as an ablative absolute, even with the laterum, because the laterum is modifying the compagibus, with the planks of the sides of the ships having been loosened. Something like that. It's my preferred way to read it, but you don't have to. And what else did the ships do? Okay, the very last thing that the ships did, they split open. Okay, they split open with cracks. All right, ablative. Your note suggests taking this as means or manner. All right, all of the ships split open with cracks. And that is it for the storm. In the next section, we will be looking at Neptune, who's going to come into the mix, and how he handles the chaos that has been unleashed. So I look forward to seeing you then.